Hey everyone, welcome. Whoa, look at the reflection in these. Let's lose these. So, welcome everyone to Litvak Leadership Live. We got a really good episode this evening. My friend Larry Levine is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about what is happening with his book, talking about his book, talking about his process. And it's just going to be really powerful. I'm so excited to have him here. This is his second appearance on the show. So let me bring him out for an immediate question. Larry, how are you?
Sean, what's going on, dude?
It is going to be a great evening. I've had a tremendous day working for my employer. It's one of those days you love. I was at a golf outing all day. So
see, I want to be like Sean when I grow up. Just it's Mondays. Oh, what's Sean been doing all day? Oh, I've been out on the golf course.
I've been out on the golf course.
I want to lead Litvak's life, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and today you probably wanted to. Other days I'm not sure. So Larry, I had no idea of the author royalty I had on my show the first time back in 20 when you were on the show. I met you on some Facebook group, I think, or maybe it was on LinkedIn. Someone turned me on to you, and you were always so gracious when I invited you on the show, and then you came on to Megamind.
I remember. Yeah.
And then you sent me your autographed copy of your book, which I keep handy so I don't become a tyrannical salesperson, because that is a possibility for anyone in sales, in my opinion. So I want to ask you, I want you to take us through the journey, but in a little bit of a different way, because I've heard you talk about how you and Daryl started the podcast, and Daryl talked to you about writing the book, but I haven't really heard you talk about the motivations behind it all. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's been an interesting journey. So I'm going to set it up this way, Sean. So here we are. I mean, we're June 26, 2023. So I'm going to take everyone back. So let's go back 10 years.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back 10 years ago. So now what's that math? That's June 26, 2013.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me, right? If Sean, you would have asked me if we knew each other back then.
Right.
Fast forward 10 years ago. Fast forward 10 years. Would Selling from the Heart exist? Hey, Michelle, would Selling from the Heart exist? Would there be a book and all that? And I would have told you were nuts. All of this, and there's not a lot of people who know this, but if you allow me, I'm going to take you all on a quick journey, because this is how this this is how this all came to be. Hey, Eric, is things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer things happen for a reason. And in this goes 8.5 years ago. So it would have been about the springtime 2015. I was coming off the best year I ever had in sales. One of the best years ever. And I was let go. At 50 years old, I found myself without a job.
Okay.
Literally. And so it was probably one of the craziest, darkest moments in my life, because I had never been fired before. Even when I was in high school and all the jobs I had when I was a kid, never been fired, never was let go. And here I am at 50 years old being let go. And I had to figure out, what am I going to do with my life? And it would have been really, really easy for me to go back to what I knew. And I grew up, in Southern California. I sold copiers in the LA marketplace my whole entire career. That's the only sales channel I knew. So it would have been really easy for me just to suck it up, right? Get over it, and then start looking for a job in sales or VP of sales in the office technology space. And that would have been the easiest thing to do. And I remember, Sean, my wife, saying, Larry, something's going to happen 6 months from now, 8 months from now. You are going to be bored. You are going to be bored. You've been in this channel maybe way too long. Maybe it's time
Mm.
for you to do something else. And Sean, I had no idea what that something else was. I had no clue. The only thing I sold for decades upon decades since the late 80s was copiers. That was it. And so
That was it.
that was it. That was the only thing. And I said to myself, man, maybe it's time to do something else, but I had no idea what it was. So here I am, spring of 2015. I'm sitting there going, okay, now what? It's the uh-oh moment in my life. And I took a step back, and the first person I called just to start tapping networks was Daryl Amy, Sean. And you know Daryl because you've been on the podcast
Oh,
before.
yeah. Right.
And Daryl's a near and dear friend of mine. Daryl and I go back decades. And I picked up the phone. I called Daryl. All I wanted to do was tap his network. Hey, Randy, great seeing you. Again, all I wanted to do was tap Daryl's network. And I shared with Daryl what happened. And after a massively lengthy conversation, he goes, I think your sales career is over. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, I think it's about time that you share with people what you did out in the sales world that made you you. Now, keep in mind, I was a solo entrepreneur. When I say that, I was an independent producer. All I had
Okay.
was worrying about my results and what I was doing.
You weren't leading people.
Listen,
You
I
weren't the
wasn't leading
sales
people. Nope,
manager.
zero. It was me, right? And for 28, almost 29 years, that was the case. But he goes, you got to go out there and share what made you you. And I go, man, I've never publicly spoken before. I've never written anything. I've never done any of this stuff. What am I going to do? And he goes, you'll figure it out, but I'm here along the way with you. Now, keep in mind, this is 8.5 years ago. Daryl
Right.
believed in me more than I believed in myself at
And
that
why
point
did
in
you
time.
call Daryl? Why was it
Um,
Daryl that you called?
is because we had
Besides
struck,
this network.
besides this network, because we had a really good friendship.
Okay.
And I remember this goes back, Sean, man, I still remember it vividly where I was at, but I'm going to say this was probably 6, 7 years prior to that 8-year mark, 8.5 years ago. I had a vivid conversation with Daryl and I said, hey, Daryl, wouldn't it be cool one of these days if you and I work together? Wouldn't that be something? He goes, yeah, it'd be something, but I can't afford you. And that was the conversation that we had when I was still selling copiers.
Sure.
So I remembered the conversation. Now I shortened that conversation because that was a lengthy conversation Daryl and I had way back when. But he was the first person that I called because I remembered that conversation. I vividly remember it. And I'm a big believer in networks. Your network's your net worth. And I
Right.
built a very strategic, highly relational network. And at that moment when I was 50, first person I called was Daryl. I just called him because he was number one on top of my mind. There were subsequent calls after that. But Daryl was the first person I called because of our friendship and the conversations we had. And something about what he said, he goes, Larry, you need to start sharing with people what you did in a very highly competitive, laggard, commoditized sales channel, that being copiers. And
So
that's what I
when you
did.
started sharing, what was, like I talk about in my book, Proverbs for Leadership, how if I would have written the book that I started
Uh-huh.
writing, it was I'm smarter than you. This is how you should do things. What were you always the sweet, encouraging man you are today? Or was there some rough edge in how you were going to share it? I mean, did you have to grow into what you are now?
Yes. And that's a capital YES on that. Because if I go back to my 20s, I'm totally different than when I was in my 40s and my 50s. I've learned more about myself in my 50s, and I'll be 59, towards the end of this year. But
Okay.
I've learned more in my 50s than I did in my 20s, 30s, and 40s combined. But however, what really transformed my approach to the market probably happened at my 40th, kind of around my 40th birthday,
Okay.
is when I felt I hit a brick wall. And I was still successful. I was the number one salesperson. I was highly successful, but I felt I can attain more. I can attain. I knew, in fact, I knew I could, but I just was stuck. I didn't know where. And I remember
Right.
I hired my first business coach at 40. And this person took me on a deep dive into who I really was. And the reason why I say this is after really sitting there and pouring my heart out to this person, and I just said, hey, here's where I'm at. I feel like I'm plateauing. What do I do? And this is where I started learning about the inner work. This person took me on a real journey to find out who I was. And back then, I was still building great relationships. I was still being myself, though I didn't know who I really was. And I think this is really important because the biggest transformation in my sales career happened from my 40th to my 50th birthday. That
Okay.
10-year span. The reason why is I finally figured out how to really be me and take that and transfer that out into the sales world even better than I was already doing. So I'm a big believer, and you've heard me say this over and over again, the inner work you do will fuel the outer success you have. I just didn't know it. And I was really successful. I was successful on the outer part of sales, and
Right.
that's stack rankings and earnings and things like that. But I was a train freaking wreck on the inside. I just masked it really well.
So when you say you were a train wreck on the inside, are you talking about um self-talk? Are you talking about
Yeah.
personal image of yourself? Are you talking about imposter syndrome? What exactly are you talking about?
It's all the self-talk and all the negativity, never being good enough. And I remembered I would get a large deal and wouldn't even allow myself any grace. Forgetting it. I would just go, okay, great. That's just part of what sales is all about.
Right.
I'm doing my job, never really celebrated, just went on to the next conquest. I always held myself at a higher degree than anybody else. And because I just felt I had something to prove all the time. And it
And
just
that's
drove me. And
painful.
it's massively painful. And that's what drove me. I was never satisfied. I was never, ever, 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 ever satisfied with where I was at. I will tell you this, fast forward to today, I'll hold my hand up on this one and say, I'm never, ever, 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 ever satisfied where selling from the heart's at. But that's
Okay.
me. That's something I got to work on. That's me. I've got to work on this all the time. It's just that I've just learned now how to give myself a little bit more grace than I did when I was in my 40s.
So what was that massive change if you can put it into a few sentences or a paragraph? You say there was a massive change from 40 to 50. What was that massive change?
I invested in myself. I invested in it. I just shared it with you. I hired my first business coach at 40. It's the best investment I ever made in my life. And who knows where I'd be if I didn't make that investment in myself at 40. Not quite sure where I'd be. I learned more about myself in a very short window of time than I did in my 20s and my 30s. And the simple reason is now I believe today wholeheartedly I got multiple coaches and mentors. That
Okay.
coaches that coaches and mentors can get you to someplace faster than you can get on your own. They help you see things in yourself that you're not able to see. You tracking where I'm going with this?
Uh-huh.
And that's what happened is in a very short period of time at my 40th birthday and for the subsequent 6 to 9 months is I learned more about me from people who've been down the road before me. And that's what helped me really transform who I was, and my results was based on looking outside for some help and being open to it and saying, hey, I don't know everything. And that was the single best investment I ever made. That was the most transformational time of my whole life. That's what got me to where I'm at today. I'll tell you
So
that right now.
so how many so there was the initial coach, and before I go on, I just want to acknowledge Michelle's comment. Wouldn't go back for anything. Went through all the motions professionally until my 50s. Here, here.
Yeah.
Um, so you had you engaged with your initial coach at 40. Um, how many coaches have you had in the last 18 years?
6 coaches,
Okay.
6 coaches, and I'd say a good half a dozen to a dozen mentors.
And so how are you defining the difference between a coach and a mentor?
I'll keep it really simple. A coach is for hire, a mentor comes into your life at the right time for the right reason. And I literally, I mean, to me, I invest in coaches, but I have multiple mentors that come in
Okay.
and out of my life. We connect every so often, and it's an investment. Like, I'm mentors to a couple of people right now. I do it because I want to, and they never asked. It's just something that just happened.
Right.
And I'm a big believer. Coaches come into your life at a certain point in time, but you got to acknowledge it and you got to be willing to pay for it. And mentors come in your life at the right time for the right reason, and they just mentor you along. There's no consistency to it. For me, my mentors, I have one really good mentor right now. We talk probably once every 90 days. But
Okay.
when we talk, boy, do we talk. And we go deep for hours. And then 90 days later, we just pick back up the conversation again. There's some mentors I have. It's once a month. We just hop on a call for 30 minutes. And that's it. But to me, there's a massive difference. Coaches are for hire. Mentors is come into your life at a certain period of time. And I keep things simple.
So
Somebody else might have a totally different definition. That's mine, and I'll stick to it.
no, I mean, I was thinking that coaches were people you paid and mentors were individuals that you have relationships with. Not that you don't have a
Yeah.
relationship with a coach, but it is a fiscal transactional relationship. Whereas with a mentor, it is more of a well, not even more of it. It is a personal relationship.
Yeah, and it's not to say I have personal relationships with my coaches, and I also
Okay.
have personal relationships with my mentors. But with my personal coaches, I go deep. I go massively deep on certain things because they're experts in those fields,
All
whether
right.
that be a life coach or a business coach. But with my mentors are strictly business mentors. They're really picking apart the business aspects of selling from the heart, areas where we can become better at, areas where I can personally become better at based on their experiences. And they
So
and they don't ask for anything in return other than share with me what you've learned and how you're going to implement it. And that's all they really ask for.
okay. Michelle's got a question. Do you still have a coach or just employ one to jumpstart some ideas and practices?
I still have a coach. I still have a
Okay.
coach. And then I still have mentors like this morning, as we're talking this morning, early dark 30 this morning. And when I say dark 30, it's before light, is I was on a call with one of my mentors, half an hour. I got a text, hey, have a great day. And I just said, hey, you want to hop on a call? Impromptu, but for 30 minutes, I'm walking and talking as they're sitting in their office. And we just talked about life for 30 minutes. But these are people that I just hold in high regards. One of the things I learned a long time ago, Sean, is I built what I call a personal board of directors. This
Okay.
is this is separate. This is separate from any business coach or life coach that I have. Is
Okay.
I have a small group of people that hold me accountable to doing certain things. It's a small group of people. They know my business. They know what I want to accomplish. They know what I'm up to. And I hold them in high regards. I guard my inner circle like no tomorrow. And these are 3 to 5 people that I hold in high regards. And that's what's helped me get to where I'm at as well.
And those 3 to 5 people, are they part of your mentor group or are they separate
Nope,
from that
separate,
group?
totally separate, totally separate.
So you've got a board that's 3 to 5 people, you've got mentors 6 to 12 people, and then you've got a coach that you're employing. It's a lot
Yep.
of talking to people.
Yeah, but it's just, I can, and some of you might be
And I'm
going,
not being critical. I'm just
no,
wrapping
and
my head
no,
around it.
and some people might say, Larry, you're crazy. And I've been called worse. But to me, and again, I was on a call with my mentor this morning, and I said, I'm just tired of people using excuses on why they can't do certain things. If it's really important to you, you will find the time. If it's not
So
important to you, you'll find an excuse.
Okay, so
This
let
is
me
important.
ask
This is
you
important to me. That's why I find the time.
So let me ask you a question, because you and I have talked about my vision for Proverbs for leadership, and I am building different things to support it, similar to how you have built things, and I find myself at times struggling balancing life, balancing wanting to build my business, wanting to build um work for my employer,
Right.
and and when I say life, then there's still have a relationship with my wife
Sure.
and not alienate her while I'm doing all of this. How do When I'm sure you went through doing all of that, how did you give yourself grace, yet correction to make sure you get certain things done when they aren't moving to how you initially thought? Does that
No.
question make
Yeah.
sense?
I think I got it. I remember a long time ago, somebody, and this, I'm going to go back. This is probably, I'm in my 30s when this conversation happened. They said, Larry, find out when your brain works the best
All right.
and capitalize on it. And the reason why I'm sharing this is how I can put all of this together. So as I was sharing before back in your sophisticated green room here in the Sean Litvak studios, is we were talking and I shared with you what time in the morning I get up. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to share with everyone who's watching. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm on West Coast time. And I'm not saying this to brag because I'm not a braggadocious person, but I found out when my brain works the best and I capitalize on it. And I will tell you this, I guard, and I shared this with you. I'm going to get to Michelle's comment in a second,
Yeah.
is I can guard my first hour and 15 minutes as me time. However, my coaches and my mentors are not on West Coast time. They're on East Coast time. So guess
Right.
what? At 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, it's 7:30 and 8 o'clock on the East Coast. So
Absolutely.
I can get all of this done. I can get some of my coaching done or some of my mentoring done early in the morning West Coast time. Or what I do is I block off from the end of the day, and I'll try not to work past 3 o'clock West Coast time,
Okay.
and then I can pick it up there. But I've learned that I can cram, and I'm talking cram because I guard time and I time block. And if you looked at my calendar, you would see it. I time block everything on my calendars. So I have my me time, which is strictly me. I got my work time. I got my spiritual time. I got my time where I just do nothing, which is Wednesday afternoons. And then I have time where, because my wife has a full-time job as well.
Right.
So, and there's times where I just block that it's her time with me. Those are Thursday late afternoons. Those are Friday afternoons, and obviously on the weekends. But um, I'm going to get out. This is a great time because I want to address this because I can accomplish all of this, and I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do, and I do it 7 days a week. And some of y'all might be saying, "Well, that's Saturday and Sunday." Well, I just happen to love doing this.
Right.
And that's what lights my fire. So I can still, even on Saturdays and Sundays, same routine. I get up at 3 and I do certain things. But on average, I'll tell you this, this will address Michelle's question, is I got rolling at 3 o'clock this morning, West Coast time. So here we are. I'm 12, I'm 15 and a half hours into my day already.
Right.
And I've accomplished a lot in 15 hours. And some of y'all might be going, Larry, you're nuts. You're going to drive yourself into the, you know what? I go, but this is what lights me. This is my passion. This is what to me, this is how I'm wired. But I still get 6.5, 7 hours of sleep.
Right.
I still do all these things. I just know now, I've just learned how to just manage time. And when I find myself hitting a brick wall, I go out for a walk. I do a power nap. I reset my brain. I
Yeah.
focus on the things that are important and it powers me through. But I can accomplish all this because, again, 40, my first business coach transformed my life. In my 50s, right? At my 50th, I had a life altering moment. And then obviously in the last 8 years, all of this has happened. But I was willing to double down on myself and do this because I've always said the best investment you make is in yourself.
So
I've just really learned how to capitalize on all of this.
so
And I don't make any excuses.
does your wife keep the same hours as
No,
you?
no, no. I'm a morning person. She's a night person. I tell you what, when it gets to 8:15 at night, she goes, "Hey, old man, guess what? You got 15 more minutes and it's time to go to bed." Literally, right? But that's why we've been happily married almost 31 years. But she knows what makes me tick and we understand each other. And I think that's the big key is some of y'all might be going, Larry, you're a freaking workaholic. I don't view myself as a workaholic. I really don't. I just love what I do. And I don't pay attention to how many hours I work. I literally don't. I don't pay attention to it.
Well, I mean, if your wife is keeping, let's just call it standard hours for lack of a better
I get, yeah.
definition, whether she's getting up at 5, 6, 7, whatever that is, that's standard hours, and you're getting up at 3, you're getting a whole lot done that then allows you to have time, well, at other times throughout the day with her because you're
So
starting so early.
no, absolutely. I'll tell you this. I guard Saturday mornings. So at 3 o'clock, I get up at 3 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays as well. I do my morning ritual and then I write. Every Saturday I write. That's my time. That's my time I write. And so by the time that she decides to get up, I've already put in I'll call it a good day's work. Some of y'all might say other things, but literally I could put in 5, 6 hours worth of work.
Right.
And it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And
Yeah.
I still got the whole day, right? Because maybe she's still in bed or she's rolling out of bed. And the same on Sundays. We've just figured it out. And again, we love each other, but on the same token as she supports what I do, I support what she does. And she knows what I'm building and she knows how important my morning times are. That's where I get all my thinking, all my creative time. Everything I do is in that 3 to 4 hour span from 3 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning is when I get all my creative time done. Because then after
Okay.
that, I don't have time to do it because, right, I'm running, selling from the heart, and we're podcasting and I'm coaching and I'm training and I'm traveling and things like that. But I will
So when
tell you
you're
this is,
traveling, you're still going to bed at 8:30 and
yep,
getting up at 3.
yep, I still, right? I mean, I still guard that time. I'm just highly disciplined. And I've just learned a long time ago of accountability. I just learned if I want to be successful, I got to hold myself accountable. I got to be radically disciplined and I got to be willing to do the things. Yes, I do work out. And I got to be willing to do the things that nobody's doing to achieve the things that I want to achieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How long do you work out for?
I do. So this is gonna answer Michelle's question. Is I had during COVID that we built a home gym, so I got a home gym in my house. But
Right.
literally, the minute I wake up, I'm intentional. My feet hit the ground. I walk right in the kitchen, drink 2 glasses of water immediately. That's within the first couple minutes that I wake up. Obviously, I make some coffee, and then immediately I start exercising. Literally, so I'm into this 5, 6, 7 minutes and I'm exercising. I'll do a good 15 to 20 minutes. And all I'm really doing at 58 years old is I just want to keep limber. I don't want to look, I don't have to look buff. It's really not that big of a deal to me. I just want to just keep the blood flowing and I just want the cardio going. That's solely why I exercise. And then I'll go, and then the other thing do is I hold myself accountable. I walk 2 miles a day as well.
Okay.
So this morning, I went out. It was still dark out. I walked 2 miles. It took me 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But then while I'm walking, I can habit stack certain things. I can walk and have a phone call with a mentor. I can walk and have a call with a client if I want.
Well,
So
sure.
I've just really learned how to maximize my time. And it took me a while to figure this out, but it's been transformative. It's allowed me to accomplish more in a day than most people accomplish in 3 days. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. We can all decide how we want to manage our time. But if it's important to you, y'all will find the time. If it's not important to you, y'all find excuses. And those are just choices that we have.
The intensity is something that I definitely admire. I'm sure it can be uh standoffish or put off some people, because I can tell you from personal experience, when I had the first draft of my book done and I gave it to 5 people to read, 4 out of 5 came back to me um with the exact same comment, among other comments, but 2 comments stood out. One, it read like bullet points, and they said, but that makes sense to anyone who knows you, Sean,
Yeah.
because you talk in bullet points. And 2, they said it's really tough love, and you've got a certain amount of tough love going on in what you're explaining to us, Larry. How does that work when you're working with companies or working with
It-
individuals in this touchy-feely, be nice world that we find ourselves in?
uh, it's 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 a saying that I hold myself to. Iron fist, velvet glove.
Say that again.
Iron fist, velvet glove.
Okay.
Now think about that one for a second. I'm all about having professional, direct, adult, healthy conversations. We need to have more of those. And that's okay. It's okay to have the direct, professional conversations. That's the iron fist part of this.
Right.
The velvet glove part of this is how you deliver it.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I say this is I will tell you this, hands down. I did have 1 year in my 28, almost 29 years selling copiers where I had to lead a sales team. It was the worst year I ever had in my whole life. I sucked at it. It was the absolute worst, most painful experience I ever went through because I was used to carrying myself in a certain way. I was used to holding myself to a certain degree of standards. And I got
Right.
pissed and I literally got pissed off and ticked off when people wouldn't do the things I was doing.
Right.
And so that's when I go, I'm out of here, right? I can't be a sales manager. I'm horrible at it. Just can't do it. But now
Well,
that,
and
go ahead.
go ahead. Okay.
That's
Well, I mean, and that's one thing that I had to come to terms with as I was leading people in operations roles and sales roles, is that, and I end up writing about it in my book, is my expectations for myself were
yeah.
only for myself. They were not for others. I couldn't force people to have the same level of expectation for themselves. I could model it, but I couldn't force them to do it.
Yeah, and this goes back to why I'm a firm believer in this iron fist velvet glove is I just wish if I go back in time, I wish my managers that I had, and I had a bunch of dysfunctional managers. I never had the iron fist velvet glove. It was just iron fist, iron fist.
Yeah.
But I just wish, and there's not enough of it today, where leaders can have open, honest, professional, heartfelt, healthy, assertive conversations with people because they'll take it as you're hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
I'm not hurting your feelings. I care about you. I want you to succeed.
And that's why you're having the courageous conversation.
Exactly. It's there's not enough of it. But again, it's when I coach and train salespeople, I love doing this, but I'm sharing with them things that I experienced, things that's happened to me, but I'm delivering it in a way through care because I do care. I just, selling from the heart, we call it giving a rip because I give a rip about their success. And sometimes this means sharing with people things they don't want to hear. And that's okay. It's okay to hear the things that you don't want to hear. It's all a part of constructive feedback and critique. And I'll tell you this, in my 20s and 30s and a little bit into my 40s, man, that's
Mhm.
the last thing I wanted to hear was critique and feedback. Now I thrive on it. I thrive on critique and feedback. I want it. I live for it. That's how you become
Yeah.
better. If there's no sales leader or sales manager out there that ever provides healthy, assertive critique and feedback, they're doing their salespeople disservice.
Right. Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. Feedback used to be one of the most painful things for me, and I won't go so far as to say that it doesn't have its painful moments, but I understand the importance of it in a far greater way and how it can make me better at whatever the situation is where I'm receiving the feedback. Now, that's all easy professionally. Personally, in personal relationships, it's a little more difficult, but I know I'm making strides there also. Do you see those kind of challenges also where
Ugh.
you are professionally
We don't do.
loving
We
it,
don't want.
and then personally you're like, "Ugh."
Oh, I need a couch for this one, Sean. I think you just got my answer.
Yeah, I think I did.
I think everybody else did as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
here I'm going to throw my hands up. I find it easier a lot of times, and I don't know why. Is I find it easier on the professional side to do a lot of these things than on the personal side of things. I don't know. That's just me. That's why I said I need a couch for this one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there like that because although we, should be the same with everyone, that should be the same personality, I don't know if we are exactly the same everywhere. And frankly, I don't know if we should be exactly the same, but there needs to be enough facets of it. And what we get feedback on, um, personally, I think can be more um um forensic in a point. Maybe that's the wrong word. Point it touches us more than professional feedback. I think that's a better way to say it.
Yeah, it's I always say you get what you get with me. I carry myself virtually the same way.
Hmm.
Because I mean, Sean, you see me in this setting. This would be the exact same way I'd carry myself out in the community that I live in with my friends and
Hmm.
things like that.
Hmm.
Except in a professional setting, I may tone the words a little bit different than in a personal setting. And
Right.
I think we all do that. But the way I pour into people is the same, whether it be personal or professional. It's just when I have to have some of those tough conversations, I find it easier to have those tough conversations in a professional setting than in a personal setting.
Well, we have gone 38 minutes. I want to respect your time. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the massive success of Selling from the Heart and the exciting news as to what's happening with a second publishing of the book. So, everyone, check out sellingfromtheheart.net /book. Larry, talk a little bit about what's going on.
So here we are. We're coming up actually in September. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of Selling from the Heart. And when I published this, I self published this. And I had no idea when I was writing this book. I just poured my heart into this book. This is exactly how I carried myself out in the field. I had no idea if and Sean, you know this because you self-published your book,
Yeah.
is I didn't know if 5 copies would sell, 50 copies would sell, and if they'd all be to friends and family and they'd be pity copy buys. I had no idea what would happen. But what I did know is prior to me really formally launching the book is if I built a community and I poured into my community and I engaged with my community and I educated my community and I excited my community into wanting to know more about the book and the message behind Selling from the Heart, then they would help me. And that's what I did as I was writing my book. And no one ever taught me how to market the book. I didn't have a public relations person. I had nobody. I mean, I grinded this whole thing out on a shoestring budget. And I'm being radically transparent on this. I had no high profile public relations person at all. I just leveraged the power of our podcast, writing, and keeping a message out there every single day about selling from the heart.
Hmm.
And I knew if I did that and I did it with consistency and I played the long game with this, that good things would happen. And sure enough, the message caught on, the message caught on, and the message caught on, and it turned into a business. I turned the podcast and the book into Selling from the Heart and the business that it is today. Based on, I just doubled down on myself and I got a tremendously good confidant in Daryl Amy with me
Yeah.
along for the ride and the journey. And then about a year ago, and I kept this silent, about a year ago, I had a New York publishers I was just starting to have conversations with, and they caught on to the story and all that. And as we started talking and as they started reading Selling from the Heart, this is what came back. 20% of it's your book, 80% of it's your story. Let's all stop and think about that. This is why I believe stories are so powerful. 20% of their decision on how to and their decision on to republish the book was the book. 80% of it was going where I was at from 50 to where I'm at today and everything that I've learned in between. And so all, when we agreed to agree, and this was a long process, and I silently kept this mum most of 2022. It wasn't until right before the holidays in 2022 that I agreed to agree. And then it wasn't until probably 60, 90 days ago that I even went public with it.
Right.
Because it's just, to me, I'm not a braggadocious person. I just don't brag. It's just like, you know what? This is the next evolution of Selling from the Heart. But what this has allowed us to do now is get broader distribution, and it just lends fuel to the fire, and it just lends credence to why Selling from the Heart matters. It matters in a world today where trust and credibility is so low. Authenticity does matter. And I don't have a PhD in any of this stuff. I mean, you've read the book. A lot of the people that are on the call that I see in chat have read the book. There's nothing
Right.
rocket science in Selling from the Heart. It's just, to me, it's a lifestyle. And that's all that I've done in bringing this to the forefront. It just happened to be catching on, and it's caught wind of people that, can help spread the message farther and faster than I can.
Well, and you talk about none of it being rocket science. I mean, it it's not rocket science what you wrote, but it reminds us of how we need to be as salespeople or as people in general. I mean, you look at Jeb Blount's most recent book, Selling in a Crisis, and as I read it, everything I read, literally everything I read, I said, I knew that. I knew that. I knew that. And you know what? I was really happy that I knew it. Now I've been reminded of it
Yeah,
and I need to use it. And it's the same thing with Selling from the Heart. And dare I say, in the same breath, the same thing with Proverbs for
yeah.
Leadership. There's no rocket science here either.
No, there's not. I remember this goes back. This would have been, I don't know, right before the winter of 2019. I remember in a conversation, I went out to spend a day with a sales team.
Hmm.
And the day before, I'm just sitting in this little foyer area, kind of like by a concierge in a desk at a hotel. And I knew I was amongst a lot of the people that I knew I'd be seeing the next day. And I had a Selling
Right.
from the Heart shirt on. And I so remember this. One of their salespeople came up to me and said, Larry, you wrote a really great book, but I want to let you know it's not life altering, life changing stuff. This is stuff I already knew, right? This is pretty basic stuff. And I go, okay, well, that's fine. If it's so basic, then let me ask you, are you doing any of this? Well, no. And I go, okay, then I guess it's not so basic, because if it was basic, you'd be doing all this stuff. And
Hmm.
this is my point. This is my point behind all of this. Right. And I drive this home like no tomorrow in a lot of our coaching around discipline habits. Is it all boils down to self-discipline and habits and accountability. Y'all know this stuff. It might be simple to understand and simple to comprehend, but it's so difficult to implement
Yep.
because so many people out there lack discipline, they lack self-motivation, they lack accountability. But I always say this, right? Mirror never lies. Only the person looking into the mirror lies.
Yeah.
That's the crux of all of this, right?
Absolutely.
There is nothing, right? And there's nothing revolutionary that's in Selling from the Heart. I will tell you this. I mean, I don't have a PhD in any of this stuff. I just have a PhD from getting the snot kicked out of me for almost 30 years selling copiers. I just poured in how I believe people should carry themselves.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. And again, there is nothing PhD in this book. I wrote this in a very conversational manner that the average person with average intelligence can read and go, I get it. This is how I've been feeling forever. I've just given him permission to put it into play.
I and completely agree. So people, go to sellingfromtheheart.net /book. Um, check out Larry's book if you're not familiar with it. If you are familiar with it and you want to support him with this New York publisher and doing all that can be done to spread his message and really help the sales profession in general, check it out. There's a link in this well, you go to this link and then there's a banner at the top of the page where you can click it for more information, because I was checking it out earlier today myself. Final word, Larry, goes to you.
Final word. It goes back. By the way, thanks for allowing me to hang out with you for the last 45 minutes. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm gonna leave everyone with this, and it goes back to the beginning of our conversation. Is quite often, and I go on podcasts a lot, and one of the questions inevitably always comes up: if you could share with your younger self, right? What would you do back then that you're doing different now? I would say this: is I encourage everyone to go find coaches and mentors. Go find somebody that can help you. And believe me, asking for help's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
Yep.
If I would have found the power of coaches and mentors in my 20s, who knows where I'd be in my late 50s. It just so happened I didn't figure this out till my 40s. I would just say this: whoever's watching or listening or happens to watch in the playback, the best investment you can possibly make is in personal development. I personally invested a sizable amount of money at 40 years old to hire my first coach. If I didn't do that, I don't believe I'd be here today. Who knows? Best investment you can make, is go find a coach, go find some mentors, find a good small group of people, call it your personal board of directors, however you want to do this. Guard your inner circle, value your inner circle, ask for help, and watch what starts to happen.
Amen. Amen. All right, everyone. That is Litvak Leadership Live for this week. Larry, thank you so much for sharing, being transparent. I've got 2 solid pages of notes here of things that I didn't know and I do know, and now I know what I need to be doing. So thank you. Be back with us next week, people, July 3rd. We are having a veteran on who is an active shooter expert. So come join us next Monday at 8 p.m. See ya.